Good evening and welcome. Tonight, presidential candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, Rabiu Kwankwaso, rules out possibility of stepping down for any candidate and challenges other contenders to a debate. Women, youth and the elderly take to the streets of Kano to rally support for the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, in a 1 million march ahead of the 2023 election. Governor Nyesom Wike and his allies in the G5, now known as the Integrity Group, say fairness and equity remain at the core of their agitations in the People's Democratic Party. The group says a window for reconciliation remains open. And parties to the United Nations Convention on Climate Change agree to the establishment of funds to assist developing countries. But we begin with politics tonight, and the presidential candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, Rabiu Kwankwaso, is challenging his colleagues in the 2023 presidential election to a debate. The NNPP candidates who were speaking at the Nigerian Guild of Editors Forum in Lagos today also says he's in the race to win and not contemplating stepping down for any other candidate.
It's another opportunity for the presidential candidate of the New Nigerian People's Party, Rabiu Kwankwaso, to pitch his agenda to the public. This time through the platform created by managers of the full-fare citizens realm, the Nigerian Guild of Editors.
Thank you.
Mr. Kwankwaso is ready to answer all the questions coming from all sides of the room, and he starts by challenging other candidates to a debate.
I'm ready for a debate with all the candidates to come and put their cards on the table, all of them. Of course, some of them are running away from debate because they have absolutely nothing to say. I think the PDP was very happy, very lucky, even kicking out its members, including my humble self, including Peter Obi, even including Wiki, that I'm visiting tomorrow to commission some projects. They're kicking everybody. They think once you get a ticket of PDP, they still see it as 1999. Not knowing that young men today who were born in 1999 are beginning to be in charge of the polling booth and so on and so forth.
The candidate clears the air again when the question was raised on the possibility of him stepping down for any other top contender in the race.
Any serious person in this country who is still thinking that any one of us at this moment will draw for another, I think that man is not even being fair to himself. You see, before now, before the closure of submitting names of president and vice president of our parties, we made efforts. We explained to so many people that there was need at that time for merger. Of course, that time would have merged with some party or parties. That time would have submitted the name of president and vice president. That would have been okay. But now we have already submitted our names. We have all our candidates on the ground in NNPP like PDP and APC. Now for you to say you are leaving them to go to another party, then I think something is wrong. So we have been answering these questions over the time. But to go to the point, you see, NNPP is all out to win the 2023 election.
The forum by the Nigerian Guild of Editors is designed to allow candidates reel out their plans to the public and answer questions on how they intend to solve the nation's challenges.
The NNPP candidates also met with the leadership of the new Afenifere, a Yoruba socio-cultural group today, to seek the group's support ahead of the 2023 general elections. Meanwhile, the governor of Kano State, Abdullahi Ganduje, is predicting a landslide victory for the All Progressives Congress presidential candidate Bola Tinubu in next year's election. He said this as he received supporters of the party's presidential candidate, who held a solidarity march to the government house in Kano State.
Members of the All Progressives Congress in Kano turned out in their numbers on the streets of Kano metropolis in what is termed a 1 million march to support the presidential candidate of the party, Senator Bola Tinubu. The march, which took off from the premises of the Kano Emirate, had people dancing and making merry. The crowd of colorful supporters marched to the Kano State Government House, where they were received by Governor Abdullahi Ganduje, his deputy Mr. Yusuf Gawuna, and other APC stalwarts. Delighted at the turnout, Governor Ganduje is confident that Kano can deliver 5 million votes to the APC presidential candidate in 2023.
You know, I'm happy. My deputy governor, who is the gubernatorial candidate, is happy. Even the people of Kano are happy. If you see the mammoth crowd for over 1 hour now, we have been standing here, we have been taking salute, we have been directing them to go to the main venue of the event for over 1 hour now. Up till now they are passing, they are still passing. It's more than 1 million march. We are heading to 5 million march.
His position is corroborated by the organizers of the march.
The least we can give Tinubu by the grace of God is 3 million. 1 million from the support groups, 1 million from the Professor Hafsat Ganduje that is mobilizing women, 1 million from His Excellency the Governor and the party. And you can see what it is. I believe we can't even hold the rally at the race course where we decide to terminate.
These supporters of the APC presidential candidate are confident that Mr. Bola Tinubu has all he requires to win the presidential election in 2023.
More politics. The 5 governors elected on the platform of the People's Democratic Party, known as the G5, say fairness and equity remain the main reason for their agitations in the People's Democratic Party. The group, which now goes by the name Integrity Group, restated its position today after meeting with some leaders of the party, saying it stands by its position and that the chairman, Iyorchia Ayu, must step down for Southerner and the true spirit of fairness. Some of the leaders who were present are the Governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, Samuel Otom of Benue State, Seyi Makinde of Oyo State, Okezie Ikpeazu of Abia State, and his Enugu counterpart, Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi. Others in attendance were former governors Donald Duke, Ayodele Fayose, Olusegun Miko, and former Deputy National Chairman Olabode George, among others. The former Governor of Plateau State, Mr. John Ajang, briefed journalists on the outcome of the meeting, which held behind closed doors.
We, at this meeting, have decided to stand on the decisions we took at our last Port Harcourt meeting. And we hereby again reiterate that the window for reconciliation in our great party, the PDP, remains open.
Before going into the meeting, Governor Seyi Makinde told journalists the governors are just part of a larger group which has been working to achieve a common cause.
The G5 is is all about the integrity group. You can see us as serving governors as the face of this struggle, but the leaders and elders of the party that you see here, they are the people behind those faces.
Meanwhile, spokesperson for the Atiku Akoak Presidential Campaign Organization, Mr. Kola Ologbodion, has been reacting to the formation of the Integrity Group by the group of 5 governors within the party and its concerns regarding the chances of the party at the forthcoming presidential election coming up in less than 100 days. Mr. Ologbodion explains that both the party and the Atiku Group are on the path to reconciliation, on which the PDP has enough chance in harmonizing its reconciliation terms. Regarding the call for the sack of the party's national chairman, Iyorchia Ayu, Mr. Ologbodion says it's not within the purview of the presidential candidates to call for his sack. Mr. Ologbodion was guest earlier this evening, on our program, Sunday Politics.
For us in the People's Democratic Party, we still have time. Election is in February. We're in November. I know in the political environment, in the political firmament, one day, 24 hours is like eternity. So for us, we have enough room, enough time to harmonize within ourselves. And I am glad that even the governors are saying that they want reconciliation. The candidate says he wants reconciliation. So what is just left is the harmonization of the reconciliation. Well, with the subject of whether Ayu will go or Ayu will stay, like I've repeatedly said at various fora, is not within the ambit of what the candidate will decide. It's a function of the National Executive Committee of the party. And I want to say this, and I say it with every sense of responsibility, that whether it's the governor of Rivers State, whether it's the governor of Oyo State, whether it's the governor of Abia, or Enugu, or the governor of Benue, they have the capacity to call for a NEC meeting. If they call for a NEC meeting, we'll go to NEC and take a decision.
The Igbo Socio-Cultural Organization, Ohanaeze Ndigbo, has officially endorsed the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, ahead of next year's election. The body says it's throwing its weight behind Mr. Obi, whom it says represents the Nigerian conscience, moral probity, general hope, redemption, epiphany, and more. The organization commends the candidates for filling what he says could have been a very sad gap in the poll if it was left for the APC and the PDP. The group adds that its support is in solidarity with the position of the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum, which insists the president should come from the South. Part of its statement reads, In the first place, going by the principles of zoning and rotation of power in Nigeria, which has been in existence since 1999, it is the turn of the southeast of Nigeria to produce the president in 2023. The organization also says it's canvassing for support across the country for Mr. Obi. At Kaduna State, the Council of Imams and Ulamas in the state is engaging governorship candidates on their programs. Top on the agenda of the 5 candidates that took part in the interaction was how they intend to address security challenges in the state. The candidates addressed also issues such as agriculture, education, as well as infrastructural development.
This is the first time the Council of Imams and Ulamas in Kaduna State will be meeting with the governorship candidates of the various political parties in the state. According to the leadership of the council, this interaction is to allow the candidates to explain their manifestos to members.
The Council of Ulama is still strong and vibrant. And I agreed with what His Excellency said in the last conference, that this council can decide, and the decision of this council will remain the answer.
Some of the governorship candidates attending the interactive session include candidates from the All Progressive Congress, the People's Democratic Party, Labour Party, the New Nigerian People's Party, and the People's Redemption Party.
Muduba what is wrong and call it.
Each take turns to address the audience in Hausa language, unveiling their plans on how they intend to tackle insecurity, revive agriculture, improve the education sector and infrastructure, among other key areas.
We have already said our...
Speaking to journalists afterwards, the candidate of the APC, Senator Obasani, scores the present administration led by Governor Nasir El-Rufai high, but the candidates of the Labour Party and that of NNPP criticize some of the government's policies.
So far, the current governor have done a lot in terms of infrastructural development, healthcare development, human capital development, education development, and healthcare development. We will certainly try to continue the progress made so far by our amiable governor. And there are some areas I believe we can improve.
From what we have seen, the primary education and schools are in their need of really not only facelift, as they usually call it. We are talking of the teaching staff themselves.
We can see that the infrastructure is not provided in the rural areas. The infrastructure is not provided in the local governments. The infrastructure is only provided within the township of Kaduna. Even inside the township, I can name different areas that are within the metropolis that are not captured by this infrastructural development.
The Council of Imams and Ulamas in Kaduna State hope to analyze the presentation of the governorship candidates and come up with decision on who to support ahead of the general elections.
In part two, after the break, NNPC Group Chief Executive Officer Malam Mele Kyari says authorities now have full surveillance of the nation's oil infrastructure and handling all challenges after discovering that technology played a key role in oil theft. That's in a moment. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the News at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Presidential candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, Rabiu Kwakwanso, rules out possibility of stepping down for any candidates and challenges other contenders to a debate. Women, youth and the elderly take to the streets of Kano to rally support for the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, and a 1 million march ahead of the 2023 election. Governor Nyesom Wike and his allies in the G5, now known as the Integrity Group, say fairness and equity remain at the core of their agitations. And the People's Democratic Party, the group says a window for reconciliation remains open. And parties to the United Nations Convention on Climate Change agreed to the establishment of a fund to assist developing countries. One more political story now before we go to the others. A group which goes by the name the Up North Ambassadors for Peter Obi has promised to mobilize its membership in the 19 northern states of the country, as well as the FCT for the presidential candidate of the Labour Party and his running mate Dati Baba Ahmed. The convener of the group, Chigozie Fanyichukwu, gave the assurance while commissioning a renovated Almajiri school in Shinkafi community in Katsina State. The group also opened for use a renovated borehole in the same community, which residents say last worked more than 5 years ago.
We are here in this community to commission a project which we have done, a twin project in this community, with the first one being an Almajiri home, the renovation of an Almajiri school, which you can see behind me, and the second one is a borehole that we've fixed in this community, giving the source of water again. With our consistent efforts at Up North Ambassadors, we've been able to create a good presence for Peter Obi and the Labour Party in the 19 northern states, not just Katsina alone. Yesterday we were at Jos Plateau State, where we executed a project in a local government, and today we are doing another project in Katsina State. So far we've seen that the level of acceptability is high. And the people are yearning for a new government. The people are yearning for something better. You know, they've rejected the APC, they've rejected the PDP, and they want something new. And we are bringing them that message of hope, which is Labour Party and our candidates, Peter Obi and Dati.
In other news, the introduction of technology into the business of crude oil theft meant that for a while, authorities could not completely monitor the entire infrastructure in the industry. That's according to the Group Chief Executive Officer of the NNPC Limited, Malam Mele Kyari. He told Channels Television's Ladi Akeredolu in our current affairs program Newsnight that while the thieves had the upper hand for a while, authorities backed by other stakeholders now have full surveillance of the nation's oil infrastructure and are facing this challenge squarely.
When you introduce technology into stealing, and this is precisely what they did, and when there is a collaboration of the people who should not be part of that transactions, you can lay pipelines, no one will see it, you can do it in the night if you have the abilities, and ultimately this is what we think happened, and that ultimately you can lay pipelines for the wrong reasons to assets that may have been abandoned, or even active assets which are not meant for those purposes. That means you see end-to-end collaboration, either by people who are around those assets, people operating the assets, people who are supposed to provide security for these assets, and so on. And you can't eliminate anything. When you find collaborators in the system, then you can get anything done. So we didn't know because the extent of collaboration is unknown to us. And essentially what this interpretation process brought on the table is that knowledge that we didn't know before. Companies have always reported illegal connections. We have seen them in numbers. We do overflights around our pipelines. We see some of these impressions over time and in history. Because they are minimal, you will continue to pull them out and then they'll return it back. And because you don't have that perfect 24-hour surveillance around these assets, they know when you do the overflights. It's not secret because when helicopter fly across your assets, and everybody will know that helicopter has gone, they can take runoff, and then once you are out of that, they will come back. So they know when to operate. But what we did now, which is very, very different, is to have total surveillance. We have seen up to a 12-inch line being run across our assets to an abandoned platform from which people come and load and leave. So that's that's the extreme part of the scale. And so between them, you have a range of possibilities, you know, from the smallest scale that I have described to the large scale where people will come with barges and probably even vessels, larger vessels to load and go away. So you are dealing with a range of issues. And you have to start from the very bottom because without access to the pipeline, you can't do any of them. And those access are done through connections. And those connections vary in sizes. And therefore, what we're doing now is to make sure that those connections don't happen.
You can watch the full interview with Malam Kyari on Newsnight as tomorrow, Monday, November 21st at 9 p.m. right here on Channels Television. Staying with security, into some cheery news coming from Kaduna State, where it appears the military is gaining more ground against terrorists. The air component of Operation Well Punch says it's neutralized some of the terrorists during an airstrike in Giwa's local government area of Kaduna State. According to the Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs in Kaduna, Samuel Arwan, the major enclave south of Kidandan in Giwa local government area, suspected to be a hideout of some bandit leaders, was torched, neutralizing several suspected terrorists. Several other bandits' hideouts were also reportedly destroyed, including some at Ali Kawaje and Beningwari local government area, as well as Walawa area and Fadaman Kanauta. Mr. Arawan says several armed bandits were neutralized at Dankero in Giwa local government area during the air raid. And in Anambra State, the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Echeng, is warning criminals to leave the state or be ready to go down as the command is set to deal decisively with them. A police boss disclosed this when he paraded about 20 suspected criminals, including the killers of the staff of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Osita Duroha, and that of the National Population Commission, NPC, Mrs. Teresa Okeke.
Young and vibrant, but heads bowed in shame as they are paraded at the Criminal Investigations Department of the Nigeria Police Force, Amobia in Anambra State, following their suspected links with sundry crimes in the state. The suspects, about 20 in number, alleged to be involved in murder, armed robbery and vandalism, and also on display are some of the items recovered from them. While parading the suspects, the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Echeng, reels out some of the successes recorded by the force, including the arrest of the suspected killers of an independent National Electoral Commission staff and that of the National Population Commission, NPC.
On the 28th of September 2022, at about 0200 hours, one Mrs. Teresa Okeke, 54-year-old, an accountant with the National Population Commission, OCA, was gruesomely murdered in a residence at number 4, Omos Viocha, OCA. Immediately the case was reported. The stepson, Ekenedi Chuku Okeke, age 20, who slept in the same house with the deceased, was arrested for interrogation. He claimed that the robbers stormed their residence and killed his mother. However, after intelligence-based interrogation, he eventually confessed to the crime and named his accomplices.
Corroborating the CP's story, a 20-year-old young man confesses to be involved in the killing of his stepmother, who was a staff of the NPC, in order to steal 1 million naira in her account.
The people, they came to get the money from her, so when they tied her...
Are they here?
Yes.
Who invited them?
I was the one that invited you.
On the process of tying her mouth, she stopped moving, and then we have to go away because that wasn't what we came to do. I didn't come to kill anybody, and I will never do such. And then when we were leaving, I told him to keep checking on her, like every 30 minutes. If she just fainted, if she's awake, he should let us know. And then from that till the next morning, he called us and said she's dead and she's not moving since then.
As he presents to journalists some of the recovered items, the Commissioner of Police warns criminals to steer clear Anambra or be prepared to face the full weight of the law.
Two more on criminality. Operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, the NDLEA, have arrested a 56-year-old woman at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Ikeja, over an attempt to traffic 400 grams of cocaine concealed in her footwear en route Makkah, Saudi Arabia. A suspect was intercepted while trying to board a Qatar Airways flight going to Saudi Arabia via Doha. In the same vein, NDLEA officials have arrested a tricycle parts seller over attempts to send 1 kilogram of tramadol 225 mg and Rofinol to Istanbul, Turkey via Cairo on an Egypt airline. He was at the airport to hand over the drugs hidden inside a bag of foodstuff to an intending passenger when he was apprehended. In a related development, about 5.6 kilograms of methamphetamine, cocaine and tramadol were discovered in a police station, bicycles, motor propeller and local fabrics packaged for export to Australia and Cyprus through some courier firms in Lagos. 2 arrests were made. Farmers in Benue State who lost hundreds of cultivated hectares of rice in the 2022 flood disaster are threatening legal action against the federal government and the Cameroonian government. Farmers allege negligence on the part of the two governments, adding that no safety net has been provided for victims following the release of water from the Lagdo Dam in Cameroon.
Like 2012, residents of Kucha Otebe, a suburb of Makurdi metropolis in Benue State, are in dire distress following the collapse of their houses, property, fences, rice farm and even fish ponds.
It's about 2 months the flood came.
Mr. Joseph Terungwa and his young family are victims of the disaster. They're now picking what's left of their lives. While the impact of his rice farm takes a toll on the family income, his wife resorts to making hair to bring food on the table.
I used to harvest 4 or 5 rice here, each and bags of rice, each and every year. But this year, the rice has been spoiled, washed away by water. Right now, there is a rice that is the source of my income, one of the sources of my income to pay my children's school fees. Right now, they pursue my children from school. In fact, I'm finding it even difficult to even give them money, food to take to the school. the fence, my house, my mattress, some of my things, just the water take them away.
Right now, when I came back, all my rice farm, I didn't meet any of them. Everything has washed away. So now I'm just managing because even my children just drive out from school. So now we're managing to, is this my head that I used to provide small thing for the family now.
Though the water has receded, the impact is telling on the quality of drinking water for their neighborhood.
Because the water is not good to use it for now due to some flood water that came and some damages, some chemicals. So many things are being taken over the water. So if we're able to use it right now, we'll find it very difficult to use it because of health-wise. So that is the reason why we have to go out and look for good water to make use of it.
On the bank of River Benue are some fish ponds. However, the flood washed them away alongside the fishes.
Came and you can see all these vats outside. I have no fish left. The flood wiped away everything. These are some of the few fishes that are left now, just as a result of the flood. And because this is a concrete pond, while those other ones are constructed using wood and vats. And so that's why I lost everything in the vats. But in the concrete pond here, I left with some fishes, despite some still escaped, because it was a very tedious and heavy flood.
This is a 19-hectare rice farm. It's been washed away by the flood. Some of the investors blame the situation on poor environmental impact assessment by the federal government and the Cameroonian government, which is why they plan to seek redress in court.
Much of the flooding that happened in Nigeria this year were as a result of the huge waters that came from the Lagdo Dam. Now let's talk about some of the environmental issues. It is a law. In fact, in Nigeria, Act 86 of 1992 says that you are doing a big project of the nature of this Lagdo Dam, you need to do an environmental impact assessment.
The farmers insist that they complied with the setback recommendation from the Nigerian Inland Waterways, which is about 500 yards from any body of water.
Staying with the flood disaster, this time in Kogi State, dozens of flood victims are still living in internally displaced persons settlements created by the state government owing to the heavy flooding witnessed across the state in the month of October. Although the water has receded, many of the victims are in dire need of humanitarian assistance to enable them to settle in their communities. Our next report takes a look at the aftermath of the flooding and what the government is doing to ameliorate the plight of the victims.
More than 1 month after flood ravaged most parts of Kogi State, destroying farmlands, submerging houses, and making it impossible for vehicles to travel on the Lokoja-Abuja highway, things are beginning to take shape again as water recedes. The highway is again recording its usual high vehicular movement, and citizens are now able to move freely in most parts of the state without the use of canoes or boats as it was in October this year. Although the flood has receded, the damage it caused is far from over.
Even now that the flood has receded, we're also grappling with the health implication. In total, about 9 local governments were affected, 514 communities were affected. We have recorded about 24 deaths.
Some of the roads destroyed by the flood are still in terrible condition, causing huge traffic jam, just as most residents still live in internally displaced persons camps in the state, needing support.
We want to go. We're even willing to go. But the reason is that when we go, where are we going to? There is no house, no place to enter, no shelter to even put our head.
Our challenge here mostly is some of us are sick. The doctor, they will not come with drugs. They say the drugs are finished. It's only little children, like newborn baby, that they really attend to.
Recently, the State Ministry of Health received drugs from the World Health Organization to care for flood victims in the state. a gesture the government greatly appreciated. The state government explains its efforts to scale up care for flood victims across the state.
The government has also made a lot of procurement in the area of medicals. I've got to have antibiotics, anti-malaria, water guards, to be able to provide potable water for the people, long-lasting insecticidal nets, and the logistics for their movement, and also application at the points of use.
We advise some of them that the houses have collapsed to write to the state government through our office, through SEMA, for government financial assistance or maybe building materials.
Although the flood has receded, it will take a while for life to return to normal. For some of the victims and for others, they desperately need the help of government and the general public to get their lives all over again.
In other issues, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, is asking President Muhammadu Buhari to set up a presidential panel of inquiry to investigate spending on all social intervention programs and projects executed between 2015 and 2022. A rights group says those found culpable of mismanaging the appropriated funds should face prosecution and any stolen public funds should be recovered. It notes that a recent report by the National Bureau of Statistics shows that some 133 million Nigerians are estimated to be poor, despite the government reportedly spending 500 billion naira yearly on social investment programs. SERAP, in its letter to the president, explains that failure to address extreme poverty has resulted in inequality and serious violations of economic and social rights of Nigerians, particularly the socially and economically vulnerable of the population. The Minister of Transportation, Muazu Sambo, says there's no cause for alarm, especially as more people are embracing train service along the Lagos-Ibadan corridor. The minister says the train conveys about 1,500 passengers daily on that axis. He was on an inspection tour which started from the Ebute Metta train station, terminating at the Monia station in Ibadan, Oyo State. Our correspondent, Dari Dowu, who joined the train ride, reports.
This control center at Ebute Metta is the starting point for the inspection tour. The Minister for Transportation, Muazu Sambo, in the company of the Minister of State, Ademola Adegoroye, and other top officials of the ministry get briefed on the signals and how the facility plays a key part in providing security around the railway facility. As the journey continues, one sight hard to ignore is how busy the rail lines are, with clusters of merchants at Oshodi, Agege and Agbado stations. The next stop is Kajula Wagon Assembly Plant in Ogun State. The facility is expected to offer a major platform for engineers, technicians, and other professionals to gain specialized skills required for the production and maintenance of rolling stock. About an hour into the journey, the train is in Abeokuta. It's a busy afternoon at the station, and the minister tries to gather feedback from the passengers. On the Lagos-Ibadan corridor, the train has been up and running. The train service is at the heart of the infrastructure drive of the current administration, not without a question or setbacks. But the federal government says infrastructure development remains a key part of developing the nation. At the final stop at Monia in Ibadan, the minister speaks about securing the railway and when the Abuja train service will resume.
We have announced previously that we are going to commence operations on that line this month. We have a target date. It is not necessary for me to share that date publicly. We have experienced anything to worry about, and in any case we are not going to wait until something happens. We are proactive. We we don't have to announce what we have done, but I can assure you that except it is beyond our powers, we have, by the grace of God, taken every step to ensure that the security of lives and goods on our trains are guaranteed.
As the government continues to target a reliable means for moving passengers and freight in large quantities and ensuring more cities are connected, an effective security arrangement are also expected to be integrated into the new rail system. Dari Idu, Channels Television News.
Relaxing things a little, delegates at the recently concluded World Tourism Organization's Global Conference held in Lagos, southwest Nigeria, capped the event with an evening of merriment. Hosted by the Nigerian Ministry of Information, Culture and Tourism, the evening showcased some beautiful Nigerian cultural ceremonial dances mixed with contemporary entertainment.
From Eyo masquerades dancing and wielding their canes in sync, to the majestic ceremonial dance from northern Nigeria, to the Atilogu warriors from the southeastern part of the country, dancing to the infectious tunes from the flute and ogene. This gala comes on the back of intense 2 days of activities, symposiums and breakout sessions from the Conference on Linking Tourism, Culture and Creative Industry for Pathways to Recovery and Inclusive Development. The Secretary General of the organization, who had led many expert sessions during the conference, attended with his wife, who appeared more at home and is dressed in a local attire. They are joined by dignitaries from across the world, including Benin Republic, India, Namibia, Togo and Sierra Leone, amongst others. Some Nigerian royal fathers, including the Obi of Onitsha, Igwe Nnemeka Achebe, and the Emir of Arugungu, Alhaji Samalia Mera, who was duly represented. Later, the Secretary General described the spectacle as a performance the rest of the world must see.
To all Nigerian hosts to make this wonderful evening. We didn't expect really where we are going and how beautiful, and you took really in Nigerian wedding, I would say. It's really amazing, and many thanks to show us the best of your country, the best of the culture of your country, which is unique, and that's why people have to come here. That's why you need more and more international visitors here to see the beauty, to see this authentic culture you have. You will never see this kind, and I really regret that I didn't come with my family and with my friends here, but I will be back.
Then the entertainment got a little more contemporary, with musical titled Nigeria My Country, put together by the renowned Bolanle Austin Peters. The evening proceeded with a special recognition for key individuals who have played a role in the development of tourism, culture and creative industry in Nigeria, before the dance floor was finally thrown open.
Some more seasonal news. Once again, Zenith Bank PLC has officially ushered in the Yuletide with its annual Christmas decorations and lighting on the Ajose Adeogun roundabout in Victoria Island. A traditional light-up ceremony is a significant effort by the bank to activate the spirit of Christmas in Nigerians.
Just like in previous years, all is set for Zenith Bank PLC to once again herald the Yuletide by lighting up the Ajose Adeogun streets and roundabout in Victoria Island, Lagos. But before the ceremony begins, vehicular movements are disrupted as fund seekers, guests and staff of Zenith Bank anticipate the coming to life of the annual ritual. The CEO of Zenith Bank PLC, Ebenezer Onyago, does the honors of flicking the light switch.
I therefore turn on this light and say, let the spirit of Christmas begin. Ladies and
Just like that, the park comes alive, with Lagosians reveling in the sight of twinkling and full-blown lights and wonderful decor. Every year, the bank comes up with different ways to be creative, never repeating the same theme twice.
We've done it now for close to 20 years. The first time we did it, we were amazed at the fact that the place turned to a picnic center. And we felt, well, it's good. Anything we can put up in the society to promote peace, to create happiness, to create joy, and that spirit of Christmas.
Zenith Bank PLC prides itself in its ability to attract locals and foreigners to one spot through this popular ceremony.
This year, we decided to do it greater than we did last year. So you can see how beautiful it is. Every year is a different theme. You know, it's quite unique. And starting from tonight, up until the end of the year, people will be coming here to take photographs. You know, it's really beautiful. You can see it's like Dubai.
The same way we have, we're doing very well in the retail market, in the corporate market, and every other sector of the economy we choose to play in. That's the same spirit that we also imbibe in doing this. Okay, if we don't put up these lights, the season is not judged to have commenced. Okay.
Under the blanket of the night, the real magic of the Christmas lightings and decorations on display on the Ajose Adeogun Street horizon creates an atmosphere of wonder for all who pass by.
That shows now the Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, is on a 3-day visit to Canada, the first high-level visit to the country since 2000, when former President Olusegun Obasanjo visited the North American nation. The visit is expected to deepen diplomatic ties between Nigeria and Canada, as Professor Osinbajo will meet the Canadian Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, and other top parliamentarians and members of the Canadian government in Ottawa on Monday. A statement by his spokesperson, Laolu Akonde, notes that issues and events around educational collaboration, technology, creative industry, and climate justice, among others, will feature prominently during his 3-day visit. He will also meet with the leadership of the Nigerian community, including from Nollywood and notable Canadian government officials with Nigerian origin, as well as representatives of the Canadian business community and investors, especially from the creative industry and technology. The Vice President is expected back in Abuja later in the week. Leaders of the COP27 summit in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, have struck a historic deal which will see rich nations pay poorer countries for damage and economic losses caused by climate change. The deal ends 30 years of waiting by nations facing huge climate impacts and, however, fell short of developed nations' satisfaction over progress on cutting fossil fuels. Our environment correspondent, Ayola Kasim, reports.
Invite the COP to adopt the decision entitled Funding Arrangements for Responding to Loss and Damage associated with the adverse effects of climate change, including focus on addressing loss and damage, contained in document FCCC/CP/2022/L18, FCCC/PA/CMA/2022/L20. I hear no objections. It's so decided.
The moment the breakthrough decision was made in Sharm el-Sheikh to address the symptoms of climate change crisis for the most vulnerable, the session approved the text provision to set up a loss and damage fund to help developing countries bear the immediate cost of climate-fueled events such as storms and floods. But immediately after, Switzerland called for a 30-minute suspension to allow time to study the new text.
We have just received the cover decision before, and we did not have time to really study it. So our group will need time for consultation and study it, and we will have to postpone the adoption of that decision.
When the plenary resumed, Around 4 a.m. Egyptian time, it was clear there is a pathway for setting up the fund as climate justice, but for some, it did not go far enough.
Some are afraid of the transition ahead, of the cost of change. They question the how, not the why. I understand those concerns, but I urge you to acknowledge when you walk out of this room that we have all fallen short in actions to avoid and minimize loss and damage. We should have done much more. Our citizens expect us to lead. That means far more rapidly reduce emissions. That's how you limit climate change, not wait and respond once the climate change has done its devastating effect.
The balance of this COP was between desires of the developed world to see greater mitigation ambition and to expand the list of who is responsible for paying for climate action, and the developing world's demands for recognition and support in the face of escalating climate impacts. A lot of compromises were made, and the baseline of emissions reductions achieved in Glasgow was barely protected.
That is why I am pushing so hard for a climate solidarity pact. A pact in which all countries make an extra effort to reduce emissions this decade in line with 1.5-degree goal. A pact to mobilize, together with the international financial institutions and the private sector, financial and technical support for large emerging economies to accelerate their renewable energy transition.
COP27, a multilateral process, was impacted by the food and energy crisis gripping the world this year and the ever-increasing impact of climate change on geopolitics. These talks were also billed as the African COP, but sufficient new finance was not generated for vulnerable countries, leaving much to do in 2023, as countries were urged to scale adaptation financing, but were no longer expected to double it. COP27 kicked many of the most controversial decisions on the fund into next year, when a transitional committee will make recommendations for countries to then adopt at the COP28 Climate Summit in November 2023. Ayola Kasim, Channels Television News.
In sports news, Qatar has become the first home team to lose their opening World Cup match as Ecuador cruised a 2-0 victory over the hosts, with Enner Valencia scoring twice in the tournament curtain raiser earlier today. Asian champions Qatar enjoyed the backing of the majority of the crowd at the 60,000 capacity Al Bayt Stadium, but could not follow a glitzy opening ceremony with a statement performance. Ecuador thought they'd made a dream start when they silenced the home fans of Valencia, headed in only for the goal to be ruled out by VAR for an offside in the build-up. Valencia did break the deadlock with a penalty in the 16th minute and doubled his tally just after the half-hour mark. The 92-year history of the tournament, home countries and previously won 16 and drawn 6 of their matches, the opening matches that is. Meanwhile, chaotic scenes broke out inside and outside the fan festival at Al Bida Park in Doha just an hour before the kickoff of the opening world match between hosts Qatar and Ecuador, after organizers allowed too many fans to flood the precinct. The venue has a capacity of 40,000, but at least double that number of people tried to make their way in, and for a long time many were let into a holding area between the main festival park and the perimeter entrance. Police realized the problem and had to shepherd irate supporters back out of the venue.
Yeah, we are getting inside, they will not allow. We are coming to watch so far. We are expending so much. How many racing? They didn't organize properly. Otherwise, they can put it proper screen, big screen here. We can sit it outside and we can watch it.
Yes, and we were standing from 4 o'clock, and it is really embarrassing for us.
Will you be missing the first game?
Yes, of course. Yes, we are all in the costume with the flag. We really wanted to support the country, but what to do?
And the main news again. The presidential candidates of the new Nigeria People's Party, Rabiu Kwakwanso, has ruled out the possibility of stepping down for any candidate. The NNPP candidates who were speaking at the Nigerian Guild of Editors Forum in Lagos today also challenged other contenders to a debate to present their agenda to Nigerians. Women, youth and elderly took to the streets of Kano today to rally support for the presidential candidates of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, and a 1 million march ahead of the 2023 election. Governor Nyesom Wike and his allies in the G5, now known as the Integrity Group, today said fairness and equity remain at the core of their agitations in the People's Democratic Party. A group which met with other party leaders in Lagos today also said the window for reconciliation remains open. And finally, parties to the United Nations Convention on Climate Change have agreed to the establishment of a fund to assist developing countries. That is the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night.